Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here. I know that it's probably a Zoom overload already, but thanks for being here. I'm going to share my screen, and I hope you can see it. So I want to make sure that
Gloria, we cannot yet see your screen though.
No, I realized what I did.
Okay.
So, yeah. which is that I did not go to share screen. How about that? Okay. Okay, now? Does that work now? Can you see it? I hope so. Okay.
Yes, you can see it.
Yes, yes, we can see it.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Good. So, you know, I put this one first because it really is coaching in an unknown territory. That is, we think, okay, when we get back to the gym, yeah, we get back to the gym, but we don't get back to what it was. And I think we all need to prepare for that. Okay, so there is a lot of unknown, and like everything, that has good and bad. Okay, so you know you're gonna have to, but you also have the opportunity to create this new normal. What is it gonna be like? You know, we told the gymnast on Friday that don't compare yourself to what you used to do because we're starting now. So let's look forward. So I would tell coaches the same thing. Don't say like, okay, when I get back to what I used to do, because frankly, after I've heard from a number of you and what you lost and what you gained with the pandemic, many of you acknowledge that the way you were working was not optimal, was almost not sustainable in the sense that you were often working a lot, you were exhausted, you were trying to do too many things. And many of you have said that one of the things is that you have gotten back to your own values, the way you love to coach. And you've rediscovered in a way a number of things that you say, yeah, that's why I got into this. That's how I like to work. So I'd like for you to really keep track of that. Think of that. And since you're going to have to develop a new way of working or coaching, we cannot have a totally clear plan, but I think everybody can have, okay, what are some of the 3 or 4 basic things that you want to make sure that you keep, that you do once you get back to coaching? So let's see if we can figure out some of these things together as much as I can, because you are the coaches, okay? I asked on Friday, I asked people to share with me if they wanted their fears, the things that they felt they had lost, and the things they had gained. Many of the gymnasts did mention the fear of the fact that they maybe are not in the right shape, maybe their weight is not what it should be, their tone, about themselves and about others. Will the others be better? Will I be the only one who's not? Things like that. They felt they had lost, many of them, stamina, endurance, doing full routines. Doing full routines is something that, of course, everybody has lost. Hang on just one second. I've had a family emergency. My husband fell and broke 4 ribs, and anything I need to do myself right now. So closing a door, I needed to get up and do myself. Anyway, the gymnasts are missing doing full routines. Of course, the competitive feel, the experience of competitions, international, for some of them for the first time. that haven't had, and the connection with others. Those are the things that they're going to bring with them when they come back to the gym. Of course, remember, I put this graph also because sometimes, particularly the younger ones, they expect that success is going to be a total straight line. You know better. You know that success looks like the other figure, like, totally up and down, and we go around, but eventually we make our way up. But be aware that the girls are bringing those fears, those anxieties with them. So be careful when you address any of those things, because even if they don't say it, it is weighing in their minds, okay? How about the coaches? I ask, and a number of the coaches also send me their worries. Of course, finances are a huge thing, and it's a very real issue for a lot of people, for a number of the parents as well, of course, okay? So your resources have dwindled, changed, and some of the expenses remain the same. A lot of people have mentioned that they've lost some of their coaching team because it wasn't sustainable, because the situation doesn't allow it. And so it's going to be different. Particularly, many of you have mentioned that you don't have many of the recreational gymnasts or the young gymnasts. The parents are not bringing them. A lot of it was after school programs that now are not. And it's unclear how that's going to be like. And many coaches worry about the health and safety of both their family and the gymnast once things resume. So there are a lot of things that are probably weighing in your mind. But remember the other side of this screen. Worry doesn't prevent disaster, it just prevents joy. So are some things going to be different? Yeah. Are you missing some things? Yes. But I think throughout your life, one thing you've done is compensate and adjust. You have found, okay, what are we going to try? What is a possible solution for right now? May not be a long term. So yeah, things are going to be different. It doesn't necessarily mean that everything is going to be worse. Some things may actually be better. And that's also something that many of you have said in the things that you have gained. Getting back to the contact that matters, to other things that you enjoy doing, things that you found out you're good at. Many of you actually, it turns out, that have really enjoyed, and so have gymnasts and parents, cooking and trying new recipes, new hobbies, playing instruments, things like that. So there are going to be differences. But understand, don't bring all of these anxieties and think that the solution would be to go back to what it was, because it's not available. So let's figure out how are we going to work with whatever is available. And again, if you can make some short lists of what are the basics that would be essential for you, that you want to make sure that are there, and use that as your starting point. And so it's like, we're starting now, we're moving forward. Let's start making some steps and not necessarily comparing with the past. Again, same thing I told the gymnasts and the parents. So as we look ahead, what do you want your gymnasts to feel when they get back into the gym? And I think those are my answers, but I would hope that at least some of those are going to be the same for you. You want them to be happy to be there. Again, there is going to be some anxiety, there is going to be some worry, but you want them to be happy. You want them to enjoy being there. So remember that word, because joy is going to have to be present. And joy doesn't mean just, oh, let's do whatever you want. No. Joy is finding some of the things you love and they love about Rhythmic. So getting back to that and even talking about that. But when you ask those questions, listen to what individual gymnasts tell you they love about gymnastics, because some of them love putting in their own little ideas or moves or something about the music. Listen to things that is going to help you create that environment. Of course, you want the gymnast to be confident, not that they already know everything, confident in their ability to learn and improve. That is central. And so when something doesn't work, remind them of what they have learned in the past. We've been there before when something seemed like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to learn this. And of course, you learn it. So confident in their ability to learn and improve. And if everybody has learned something in this crazy situation, is how important those human connections are to all of us. And some of the gymnasts have said how they've actually felt they got to know you, their coaches, better. And in some strange way, felt a little more connected. And actually, some have mentioned that they felt more connected and that they got to know Caroline better. So I think that issue is important. So if I could highlight something, those three things: joy about gymnastics, highlighting their own ability to learn and improve, not that you already know it, no, you're very good, you can learn and improve, I can see it, that's how you do it, I've seen you do it this way, remember when, and highlighting the connection, the personal connection, even if people are going to have to train with less people around in slightly different conditions. But we now know that even without seeing each other, we can actually keep the connections alive. So I think that that's something that's essential to incorporate. So when people come in with anxieties and fears and we don't know for sure, make your vision so clear and help them make their own vision so clear that the fears become irrelevant. And that vision is not about all the little details, how are we going to do this, but about we are going to train the best we can and really love gymnastics and get to a point that's going to be maybe even better than what we were before. And we're going to do it differently. And let's figure out what that is for you and for the gymnast. So it's important that you have this vision of how do you want this to be in the way that's possible. Again, many of the little details we're going to have to figure out as we go because we don't know and we cannot know. But we know the basics, and that we can know. Your values, what's important, what you love about this. So how can you help the gymnast clarify their vision? I just put here a series of questions. You may have your own, and they may be better. So use whatever, but have a conversation, and don't just delude them with questions the first day they're back, but the first week, the first couple of weeks, talk about. So the days that you feel proud of yourself, how did you practice? How were you in the gym the days that you feel like, wow, I feel I did a good practice? Not just that my coach was happy, but I feel proud. And that may be about how they react to challenges, how they react to feedback. Sometimes it's harder for gymnasts to listen to feedback. Sometimes we give feedback that is hard to listen to. But start going down some of these things. Make sure that the gymnast can answer that question. How are you when you use what you have? And what would you be like if you consistently use what you have? And understanding that every time you have a little bit more. So what would it be like? That is kind of starting to create a picture in their head, because the picture that the gymnasts very often have is, what am I missing? What does somebody else have that I don't? What is going to be an obstacle? They do that on their own. They need no help most of the time. So help them create that picture. What would you look like? What kind of gymnast would you be like? What is that image? When do you love gymnastics? What are the moments? Sometimes it's a tiny moment, a part of a practice. The whole practice, probably not everybody loves the whole practice all the time. That's, of course, that's human. But when do you love? The feeling of something you're doing, and it's often doing something for the first time. That means overcoming a challenge, when being creative, when everything flows. There are many different elements. When I help somebody learn something, so that again maybe something for some of them that be important piece to use. After you've talked about these things, then maybe the time to ask. So making sure that we include those things that came up here. What is your goal for next season? Whether next season is 14 months away or 10 or 9, the main events, what is your goal for next season? And let's make sure that we get there using all of these things that we have come up with. Give them time to think. Don't rush them. And sometimes they just look at you like, well, I don't know. Say, fine, that's hard. Think about it and come back to me. Write down 3 things. Don't answer it for them. Don't let them get away with not answering, because they need to reflect. This is not a test where there is a right and a wrong answer. And sometimes they're used to thinking this way. No, let them think about that. And in this way, we're making it more also their own, so they can answer the question, why am I doing this? It's their vision. I hope that makes sense. But also, what about you, coaches? When is coaching fun? And again, we have so many things to do, many of them, we have to do them and they're not fun, from paperwork to details to complaining about something or someone, to criticizing, to, yes, there are some things that are not. But let's keep track. When is coaching fun for you? And the same thing, how are you when you realize you like how you are coaching? Not just how they're doing, how you are coaching. What is present there? What is it that you are doing more of or less of? What are you like when you enjoy the way you're coaching, not the results, the process? And keeping that in mind, maybe that it's when you can start developing your own vision. How are you and your program going to be in this new normal? Start creating. I'm gonna have a gym that I'm gonna be doing these kinds of things. I'm gonna make sure that fill in those blanks based on some of those things that are relevant to you, that you realize this is important. I like when I'm this. That doesn't mean that's all that you're gonna do. We know that. But making sure that that is a part of it, that is present, okay? One of the main things is that we all want the gymnast to be confident and to be consistent. And they cannot be consistent if they're not confident. They're pretty mingled. So one thing I would like to make sure you include is that you track progress, that you record improvement, and that you do it in a way that they can see. I know that, a lot of the time you keep track of how many routines and how many mistakes. Keep track in some way, some things, but the things that were better today than before. The gymnasts always look at how many mistakes I had. Okay, make sure that in some way you start tracking also improvement, because that's what's going to build their confidence. Okay, there is going to be an awareness of mistakes. Of course, it has to be, but it cannot be the only awareness of practice, everything I did wrong in today's practice. And force them to see even small gains. When they're learning a new thing, it takes a while before it works. But sometimes they are doing small pieces of it well, but they don't see that because the end result is not there yet. Make sure that they see that. Ask them questions. I think, and that's really the main thing, train them to be more aware of what they do. So whenever you can, ask for their opinion. What do you think worked here? What were you trying to do? And is that the same as what you did? How do you think it was the same or different? Before giving feedback, sometimes they finish and they immediately look at you like, okay. So instead of telling them, ask them. And again, you're not going to do it all the time and you're not going to do it with everybody. It's exhausting. But make sure you do it every week with everybody at some point. Ask, particularly before giving feedback, before you say what worked and what didn't, ask them, because otherwise all that matters is what you say, and they don't have enough of a connection with how it felt in their body. Another thing that I think might be helpful and important is to ask at the beginning, what is their practice goal today? What is something that, besides everything you may have planned for them, what is something that they're going to work on today, that they're going to do it a little bit better, it's going to be a little bit more part of their focus? If you ask that, at the end, ask how it worked. What about it worked? What didn't? I think it's, again, telling them this is your practice and you need to be invested in what is it that you're going to do better. If you just do it once, it's not going to have a big impact. But if you do it consistently, again, not every time, not every day with everybody, it might not be possible, but ask. For some of them, you may just ask, okay, what about this week? What's your plan? But then ask at the end of the week, how is, or in the middle, how is that going? How are you doing with that? You know, asking questions if we don't come back to them is like a teacher assigning homework and not asking for it. After the second day, they don't do it. So make sure that if you ask, you go back to that, okay? So what I'm saying is, make sure to train their awareness of focus. So when you ask what worked, so you are going to keep track of it. But when they do something better than they did it before, ask, what did you notice? What were you paying attention? Where in your body did you feel that you knew that was right? That's a little bit of the focus. And if you just ask, what were you focusing on? Sometimes they say nothing, because they were not intentionally, but when they did something right, they felt maybe their back in a certain way, or they realized they could see their hand at the end of the move, whatever it is. Start asking them to pay attention to that. Sometimes you can look at a video together, if you use just in your phone or whatever in practice, and see, what did that feel like? What was different? Again, focus on some of the body awareness, some of, what was different about this one, which was better than the previous one. The same thing with intensity. Particularly when you see that intensity is very good, ask, what do you think your intensity is today in practice from 0 to 10? And whatever they say is, if you agree, you say, you see, this seems like an optimal number. So if 8.5, we're not going to say 10 because 10 is a little frantic, but making them aware of when you see the right intensity. Sometimes they think they're working hard and you realize they kind of have gas and they don't realize that. So ask about the intensity, comment on it. If the intensity is low, say, okay, right now I think from my perspective, your intensity is too low. How about you take a couple of minutes, go get a drink of water, and come back and raise your intensity? And you're saying you can do it. I mean, if you yell, if you get mad, it will raise the intensity. But you are doing all the work. And the control of the intensity is outside of them. That's not what you want. So teach them, again, help them be aware and realize that they can control that. And the same thing with the quality. It's not like, yeah, I did 10 of these. Okay, how good were they? Which one was the best? Which one was the one that, you realize, oof, that's not it. So it's not doing, it's how you're doing. And, we've talked a lot about deliberate practice, but but make it a little bit part of the little things that they do and that you ask them to do. So, you may have questions and you may have ways that you do this that work really well. So it would be great if you share some of those, and we'll be glad to, talk about it. And we have a series of tools that maybe everybody can share. So whichever way you want to do this. Because of the thing I mentioned about the interpersonal connections, I think is something that you also want to be intentional about. That is not just say, okay, we are this team, we wear this uniform, you're my girls, okay. But help them work about this as well. So, for example, these are just examples. You don't have to do it this way, and you may have ways you do it again that put it better for you. Perfect. But asking each one of them to write down. If you ask them to do it verbally, they're going to say, oh, the same thing she said. Ask them to write down. You also write those down. Let's come up with 3 words that define us. That's who we are. And, we may come up with a list of, I don't know, many words. Let's discuss first in groups and then eventually as a whole group until we get the 3 or the 5 that everybody can agree. You can actually write those down on the gym and maybe put everybody's picture there. And this is a little bit of our identity. But then once we have those words, let's use them. So how do we have to be in practice and in competitions to honor these words? 3, I put 3, you can put 5. Don't put more than 6 or so, because it just gets too much and it gets diluted. But how do we have to be? And the days that, again, the intensity or the focus is not right, say, okay, are we being this? Are we training this way? Sometimes you can stop and say, okay, let's stop and let's remember this. Is that what we're doing? If somebody were watching, would they see this? And ask them, take a minute, come back, let's get back to who we are. You don't have to yell, you don't have to get mad. Sometimes you do, but not all the time. So again, it's maybe helping create and tell them, everybody matters. If one doesn't do it, we all are different. So you impact each other. And other questions that you may that you may use, ask each gymnast to write the answer to these 2 questions. What do I do that helps the team be better in practice? What do I do that interferes with the team's success in practice? Or with the team being those other words that we said, you can play with those things. You can do the same thing if you want for competition, but practice is so many more hours than competition that I think it's a better use of your time and energy. So once you have that, if you collect all of the, what do I do that helps the team better in practice, and you make a list, it's like a roadmap to actually being great. And those are their words. So again, it's like, this is who we are. You don't have to do all of it. I don't mean to overload you with things, but pick something that makes sense to you, that matches how you are, how you think about it, how you relate to the gymnast, and then create a little bit of that pathway. Okay. If you coach group, I think it's even more important. And this is something that I have done, that some groups in some sports do some version of it. Have a list with all of the girls' names for each girl of the member of the group. Each one gets a list. And then ask them to write next to each name, what does she contribute? What does she bring to the group? Or what do you value about her? At least 2 or 3 things. And then also maybe a question, what do you wish she did more of or less of? This is a nice way of asking, what would you like her to change? But sometimes she says, I'd like her to be more vocal, or, or less distracted, but specific, not just a generic word. So each one has to answer for everybody else except themselves. No, they don't need to put names on the top. They can give it to you if you ever want to and want to send that to me and me to be the repository of that. And I'd be glad to do that. But in the end, you can give each girl, a list of all of the things everybody else said they value about her, that she brings to the group. And this is a unique piece of information that sometimes the girls have a hard time seeing about themselves. But they also can see what things the others would like for them to change, be a little bit more of this, a little bit less of that, except make sure that those suggestions for change are things under the gymnast control. Okay, so I think it's important to create that, like, everybody values everybody else, everybody brings something important, and everybody has some things that they can improve. So again, it's not just who we are, which I think is important, but okay, as a group, how do we connect? How important are we? And this interconnectedness needs to be highlighted for them. So it's a lot of things, it's a lot of unknowns, but you are the best coaches. So trust yourself and create a new path. You've done that already other times. So trust yourself, and I think this is a great opportunity with all the experience, all the knowledge, the passion you have for the sport, or you would not be here listening. Then use it. Use it. I think also you can support each other as coaches. I think you can offer each other lots of help and ideas. But in any case, definitely trust yourself. Think about what you love. How are you when you're good? What works best? And let's make a new normal. Okay. I hope you have questions. I'd love to answer them. So I'm gonna stop sharing so I can see if there are questions that I hope, or if there are some things you'd like me to expand or clarify. But I hope I gave you some ideas, and we can work together at developing them.
Thank you, Gloria. Well, I hope people too will take this time to ask questions about anything on their mind as a coach, as they're re-entering with these gymnasts that they've seen on Zoom a lot, or maybe they haven't seen on Zoom. And maybe while we're giving them a chance to formulate those questions, I'm going to ask mine. Mm-hmm. Or at least put it out there. Based on something that you said, I think it's a really very big issue specifically for our program, and that is there is a lot of athlete anxiety around weight. And returning back and having like this immediate comments about that, when as Beth will describe in her return to training, I mean, there's been growth. It's over 8 weeks. Gymnasts have grown. Obviously, they haven't been able to train in the same way. What are some, just a strategy or two we can try to keep in mind to avoid immediately shutting down the athlete? Because they're going to come back. They're going to be a mix of excited and nervous. That's forefront in their mind, and that's one of the first things that comes from a coach. It's just going to shut them down. Mm-hmm. What are some things we can all think about together to help us avoid unintentionally perhaps, but it is, I would say it's out there as really a major anxiety, changes in one's body. They're going to be different, and to me it seems like it's not even worth bringing up. It's just going to be what it's going to be, and we're going to start from there. But I want to at least maybe talk about how we want to how we can best have this out there without creating a crush in one's confidence that's already going to be.
Yeah, I think actually that, again, that is going to be there. It would be great if we didn't have to say anything, but I think because many of them are going to be anxious and are going to think sometimes that they're the only ones anxious about that, or that, I think that it would be great for the coach to bring that up overall and say, all of this time, all of us, we have had less chance to move the way we used to exercise the way we did to. We, probably also had a structure of eating that was different from what was before because we were home all day. So all of our bodies probably have changed. So some things for the much better, like healthier, less injuries, all of these things have fixed. We might have lost some tone. Some people have grown. There are lots of changes. That is to be expected for all of us, coaches included. And then saying, and the one thing we don't want is to try fast changes. That is never healthy. And so remind them that we don't want to see a rapid change in body, because that would mean you're using an extreme technique that is unlikely to be helpful. So let's give the body time to adjust to the new process and see how are you feeling stronger, healthier, getting in shape. That is going to be the way we're going to look at it. So let's look like, like Beth was saying, at the number of hours, the number of repetitions, at eating healthy. And if you need to, bring somebody who can talk about nutrition, but I would just, they know enough in general. But if not, think about bringing somebody to talk about just the same way that exercise needs to be a progressive thing. If somebody has grown tall and lost weight, that's not as healthy either, maybe. So it's not just gaining or losing, is let's do a progressive getting in shape overall. And mention that you don't want to see drastic fast changes, because that is not healthy, and that's a sign that somebody's just looking at the outcome, not how we're going about it.
Thanks. Looks like we have 2 questions that came in.
Okay. And it's a question about gymnasts being less motivated because there are no competitions anytime soon, and that's usually short-term goal or reward, and how they can have the little gymnast motivated with a goal reward being far away. That is a change, and that's why you're gonna maybe need to create different things in the gym about again, keep track and post something and have an improvement competition of some sort about some activity. We've talked in the past sometimes about how many of our gymnasts are very perfectionistic. They only like to do the things that they do well. One great thing that you could start would be keeping track and who is the gymnast that this week has tried many or more new things, or more things the new way, something that addresses that fear of looking bad. And so, make something, send an email to everybody so that they have some specific things about the process. Who is doing those things? Who's had the most consistent intensity in practice? And you may have to come up with, different competitions in terms of, okay, who's going to be the best at teaching some of the younger ones these kinds of things, or, creating new things. Don't do, one every day, because then it kind of loses value, but maybe something every week. And then every so often do a little show for parents. prepare something that is, you know, part of a practice where, you know, people try different things, teach each other. Again, you guys have probably so many more ideas than I would about this, but something like that, I think you're going to have to be intentional about it. You're going to have to pay attention and, again, show them how they're improving, show them, but also compare in this way, in the positive way, to everybody and raise everybody's level, I think. Okay. Another question is how to help gymnasts that lost interest in the sport, having all this free time for herself, enjoying being with her family at the dinner or walking outside, having fun that she didn't have before. Now she needs to be back on the regular schedule and put more effort. Oops, sorry. I don't know what I did. There we go. Yeah, I think for some of them that was fun. You may have to also talk about the fact that they are not average. They don't do what everybody else does. They do what everybody else does and other things that other people don't. So sometimes they think like, oh, you know, the girls in my class, they have these pajama parties or they have these things and I can never go because I'm at practice. Probably many of the girls of her class would change places with her to be able to do what she does. So if you make being at practice fun, showing the improvement, fun in the sense of this, of showing the improvement, doing something hard and overcoming it, they may. You may lose some, yes, but you may lose some of those that you had to be carrying all the time that were a huge drain for you. So I think that you can make it, but you're going to have to acknowledge that, yeah, this is not what everybody else does. This is not easy because you are not average. You're doing something a little bit special, and not everybody has that ability, and it has to be of some interest to them. But you're going to have to reinforce some of that and value, like, boy, that was good that you came and you came in early, and acknowledge those things, particularly initially. I don't know if Caroline, if you have any other comments about these issues. There is a question also about how do coaches deal with wearing the masks and not scaring the children. There are so many materials that you can make masks that are actually funny, that have characters, and again, that's going to be part of the new normal. Probably the kids have seen the parents wearing masks. They've seen them, on TV, on the street. But I would make, or even have them paint. Have a contest and have them paint some of the things that should be on the masks, or things like that. Kids actually are extremely resilient, but address it. Okay, and if it's a very, very young child, then you're going to have to enlist the parents. But I actually think it would not be a huge problem. Okay.
I think, Lori, if there's any other questions, we probably have another minute or two for somebody to type them in. And
they can email me, they have my email.
Yeah, and I think guidelines will continue to evolve around interacting in the gym. I mean, USA Gymnastics is going to be putting forth its first set of guidelines. Those will evolve. As we move farther into it, whether or not people are at social distance and to what degree masks are recommended versus required is also going to evolve. I mean, so it's going to be, and it's going to be, of course, the decision of the coach and the club and et cetera, but those things are going to evolve very fluidly, and it's going to also depend at what distance you're coaching and what distance they're all interacting. But there is
a question about team interaction
keep this worded.
and keeping a distance can worry the kids. Again, make it a game. You know, put circles on the floor, put things. It's like, oh, you know, we're gonna we're gonna have to keep our air in between us, our space. If you don't overreact and you don't get upset, no, don't get so close. It's like, oh, remember, you know, your circle is there. You're getting too close. It's like it's gonna be, you know, the two cars are gonna collide. Just make it part of a language. It's like, you know, yeah, that's part of that new normal. That is weird, but is. And yeah, we're gonna this is gonna keep changing anyway. So we'll have to keep adjusting to it. So. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gloria, and thanks everybody for joining in.